Now let's talk about the nightcap of Georgia, Ohio State. And a lot of people, if they were to have the choice, which one of these games would be a blowout, would choose this game. I don't. I think this is your classic. I think this is the game that's going to be thrilling to the end, and I think Ohio State could win the game. I got to talk about Ohio State real quick. I don't know that I've ever seen a team thrown away as much as Ohio State got thrown away after one bad half against Michigan. They had one bad half this season, and they got their dicks knocked in the dirt against Michigan. They got embarrassed in the second half. But this is still a team filled with elite talent. This is still a very good team. And they got absolute people talk about Ohio State like they went 4-8 this season. They went 11-1, lost one game to a team who's number 2 seed in the playoff, and now you're giving them another chance. You're giving them new life. As good as Georgia is, I promise you, they would much rather be playing TCU this Saturday than Ohio State. I promise you that.
I don't disagree with that. I do, I was very much on the side of throwing them away. Again, not to rehash old arguments and beat a dead horse because it doesn't fucking matter because the playoffs are here. I don't think that when you look at, we look at all the teams that are playing, it's like, well, their last game was the conference championship. Ohio State's last game, they got their dicks kicked in by their bitter rival by, a ton of points while they were favored by 10. Regardless, first of all, I didn't think Ohio State would get in the playoff because I thought USC would win. But I very much am in the camp of now looking back, I threw them away probably a little bit more than I should have. However, what I've never wavered from and what I've never looked away from is how good Georgia is. And I know we'll talk about Georgia, but Georgia, even the close games that they had, those games they were sleepy. They didn't look like a bad football team to me. Ohio State has shown that they can be beaten. Georgia has not. Georgia has not shown me that they can actually be beaten thus far. But I do agree. And I will admit that I was able to throw Ohio State away much faster than I probably should have. But I still think that half of football tells a bigger story about this team and where they are capable of being beaten.
Yeah, the thing about Georgia and how good they are and everything, Ohio State has shown they can be beaten and Georgia hasn't. That is a true statement. Georgia also hasn't played anybody as good as Michigan, and Ohio State has. And that goes a long way to me. The best team Georgia's played is Tennessee, and they handled them pretty good, but I'm not sure Tennessee was all that great. I mean, they were fine. But, Jack, did you throw Ohio State away?
So I look at this game and think Georgia's just a better Michigan. I would say Stetson Bennett is better than J.J. McCarthy. However, Georgia's struggled running the ball all year. They haven't really shown to be an elite run team. And I think that's what really won Michigan the game. They kind of exclusively worked off of play action passes and then massive runs from Donovan Edwards. And Georgia ranks 69th in EPA per rush, which is not great. All that being said, I do think that's a very good narrative and very good perspective that we may have thrown away Ohio State too fast. This is a very good football team. CJ Stroud's a very good quarterback. They have elite receivers, elite running backs. They have elite players all over their defense. I keep going back to the fact that this Ohio State team should have beat Michigan, but didn't, and really just got kind of manhandled in that second half, and that's a little concerning. Mm-hmm. But, if they didn't, let's say one of those passes J.J. McCarthy threw was dropped. Let's say Donovan Edwards fell instead of running for an 80-yard touchdown, which is whatever, or CJ Stroud completed one more pass. Would this game really be a 7 points or 6.5 point spread? I don't know. I think Georgia and Ohio State are very similar. So the spread's a little bit wide. I think this will be a very good game to look at from a total perspective and the over. But yeah, I think I'll end up on Ohio State. And I said before that the closer game would be TCU Michigan, but I think we may have our first playoff that has 2 close games.
I know I'm up on Ohio State. 6.5 is crazy. 6.5 is crazy. This will be a 3-point game in the fourth quarter, and somebody's going to win late. The thing about Georgia is people look at them and they see the wrong things. people, if I ask a casual college football fan right now, tell me about Georgia's football team. Oh, elite defense, offense is fine. It's really kind of the opposite. Like Georgia's defense is very, very, very good, but their offense is also real fucking good. Looking at these, Georgia and Ohio State in total offense in the country are side by side. Georgia's 7th, Ohio State's 8th. Georgia averages a lot of passing yards, and you don't think so. And I made fun of Stetson Bennett for making the Heisman. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball, they keep the ball. They have long, sustained drives. They're very good at that. They don't really turn the ball over. They are a very efficient and a very good offense. Defensively, they're not the headhunters they were last year. They're not the headhunters they were. They had the number 1 pick who went to the Jags. They had these defensive linemen that would just knock your dick in the dirt and just destroy you. They don't really get after the quarterback very much. They only had 26 sacks this season in 13 games. That's good for 70th in the country. They don't, and Ohio State offensive line only gave up 7 sacks all year. So they're not going to be able, I don't think they're going to put a whole lot of pressure on CJ Stroud. It's beyond the line of scrimmage where Georgia's elite. I don't know, man. I see these two teams and everybody puts Georgia up here. And because of what happened to Ohio State and Michigan, put them down here. And I think it's more like up here and up here. I think these are the two of the 3 best teams in the country.
If we look at Georgia's, we think of them as this elite pass defense too. I don't think that's necessarily true. If you look at their numbers, it's not necessarily amazing. It's their
They have the 49th best pass defense in America.
Yeah. And then if you look at it from like expected points added per pass, it's 22nd. That's not that good. Their defensive success rate ranks 8th in the country, and their pass success rate on defense is 18th. You know, like this is a team with CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison. I don't know if there will be player props on the Barstool Sportsbook, but if there are, I would definitely look for like a massive game from Marvin Harrison, a massive game from CJ Stroud. And I think with that and explosiveness, that's going to be a real, if they can shut down. And then on top of it, so against the rush, they're very good. But on top of it, it's like if you can't stop this pass, and you, like you said, you laid out those numbers. If you can't get pressure on CJ Stroud, it's going to, like, he exclusively works incredibly well from protected pockets. And when he has a protected pocket, he can pick you apart, man. So you could really see a situation where even if Georgia goes up 14, CJ Stroud, ping, 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 it's tied game.
The most valuable real estate in this game to me is not going to be on the field. It's going to be in the heads of Ohio State players. When they got down against Michigan, they kind of quit. They kind of folded. They kind of ran for cover. They kind of they kind of laid down. But for a month, they've had to hear how shitty they are, how overrated they were, how soft they are. What does that do to you? Does that mean a month later you're going to come out and you're going to stay soft, or are you going to come out and fucking play football? The answer to that question is like, I think you'll know if Ohio State's going to be in this game in the fourth quarter in like 5 seconds. Like if you just see the first couple of plays, you'll know the kind of effort level you're getting. Because if they run for the hills again, Georgia will embarrass them. I don't think we're going to be talking after this game the way that we did after that game with the body language, because we talked a lot about that. The body language in the second half, CJ Stroud, you go down the list. But my question for both of you, when you look at, we can look at stats, we can look at where these defenses are ranked, but do you think Georgia's defense is better than Michigan's? Because that, to me, when you look at what happened in the second half of that game, and it wasn't all just the players, by the way, there was a lot of play calls that didn't make sense. We put a lot of heat on Ryan Day as well, but it's just, to me, it's like, I think that if I had to pick between those two defenses, I would still take Georgia. And the way that Michigan was able to have CJ Stroud contained more than we had seen all season does tell me that they don't have to be the headhunters and the elite defense they were last year. They have to play really well, but that their offense is good enough to where it does balance that out. Do you think that they are better defense than Michigan? That's what it kind of comes down to. I think they're probably equal. I don't know, better or worse. I think they're very, very, very similar to Michigan. Michigan probably a little bit better pass rushers, but Georgia's so good on the back end, man. They're very, very good on the back end. Ryan Day is a very important man in this equation too, because I did think, you just pointed it out, I thought their play calling was bizarre against Michigan in the first half when that game was back and forth. They threw down the field a couple times. They had a fade to Marvin Harrison Jr. for a touchdown. In the second half, he played like they were in overtime, and if they crossed the first down line, somebody was going to get eaten by an alligator or something. Like, they did not throw the ball down the field. They were scared. They were timid. They were scared, and they called plays like they were scared. You can't do that. If you play not to lose, you're going to lose every time. And he's just got to let it fly. He's just got to let CJ Stroud throw the ball down the field. And if it gets picked off, it gets picked off, whatever. You can't worry about that.
Well, and that's why when, we go through all these statistics and we say, if they can't get pressure on CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison Jr., then they're going to have a day. Well, that also comes into fruition if they call plays to let that happen. We did not see that happen. So I would assume with over a month to prepare for this, I'm sure Ryan Day has been reading things or been told things, like he knows the mistakes that he made. And if he doesn't, he's a moron. I'm sure he does. So I don't anticipate that happening to that degree again, but that is a gigantic factor because it wasn't like Michigan beat them making CJ Stroud throw the ball and he couldn't do it. They didn't do what they were best at in the second half of that game. Michigan kicked their doors off. But if Georgia can do the same thing and Ryan Day plays the playbook the way he did, that's a recipe for disaster because we've seen it happen. So if you think their defenses are pretty equal and pretty similar, then that's a blueprint for Georgia to say, okay, well, they're going to run scared in these situations because we've actually seen it happen on the field. I don't know if that's going to happen, though.
There's another blueprint that if Georgia's able to follow it, they could win easily as well. We saw J.J. McCarthy hit 3 big passes off of play action, and J.J. McCarthy is not as good as Stetson Bennett at this point in his career. And Bennett has Brock Bowers, the best tight end in the country. He's got McConkey, a very good receiver. If McCarthy was able to hit these wide open play action passes, what's Stetson Bennett going to be able to do? Because if Ohio State hasn't shored that part of their defense up, then it could be a long day. Because Stetson Bennett, it'll be Georgia will come to the line, get a 1-yard run for 2nd and 9. And you think, okay, well, this is a slow, boring offense. He'll fake it, and then Brock Bowers suddenly wide open 40 yards down the field, and he makes a throw that anybody can make. And you think, oh wow, that's something. If Ohio State hasn't fixed that play action defense, could be a long day. But I think they probably have, and therefore, I think an Ohio State Michigan national championship game is not a pipe dream. I think it's a very distinct possibility. I don't know that I'm picking Ohio State to win this game. I know I am confidently picking Ohio State to stay within 6.5 points because I think this is going to be a war of a football game.